All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. So I appreciate everybody coming on. For those of you that may have seen this presentation at Secure World earlier this year, actually in person, believe it or not, I have added a few things since then. So this presentation is going to be, for the most part, live. So I have just a few slides that I'm going to go through. So a little bit about me real quick. I am the senior information security manager at Krispy Kreme. Came in here in December to help develop a new security program. But as part of being, in the food industry, I come from the food industry. Part of that is, being part of other organizations that help support various critical industries and critical infrastructure, food, manufacturing, so on and so forth. InfraGard is that. Been part of InfraGard for a very long time. It's run by the FBI, overseen by DHS. Also part of the United States Chamber of Commerce Cyber, it's now called a work group, it used to be a committee. So that allows for information regarding things that have to do with cyber in our government, how various bills are being passed, how NIST is changing, moving about, anything changing with, say, regarding the framework around the cybersecurity framework. If anything's updated with that, we get input. We get to provide input on that. It's very nice. The other thing, excuse me a moment, I know this up, is I am a certified ethical hacker, but I'm also a offensive security professional. So basically what that means is that it's one thing to be able to understand the concepts of what you're doing, take a test on it, sort of thing. The offensive security professional is actually tested in a very practical manner. So there's very little to no written, it's all lab. So if you can do that, then you can actually do this job. I have been published in several publications, including Pen Test Magazine. Those of you not familiar, I recommend that you go check it out. I recently did an article in June regarding insider threats, called White Hat Approach to Insider Threats. So do check that out. So let's first off talk about what is out there. So the top side of the internet, www top side. So what can you see? Those are the things that you can search. That's the stuff that's indexed. So when you do a Google search, when you do a DuckDuckGo search, whatever your search engine choice, you do that search and it will basically identify all of the various entities that are out there regarding, well, if you even search dark web. Well, the question is when you search and get those results, are you getting the same thing that's available on the deep web? Not always. Sometimes it's accessible. Sometimes it's indexed. It's becoming more so. So as you're doing the searches for specific terms regarding dark web, deep web, ToR, whatever your buzzword is that you're looking up, there's a very good chance that you're going to get today a lot more results than you would get in the past. However, there are certain provisions and conditions in order to actually access some of those. Now, one thing I want to point out when I go through all of this demonstration is that I am not advocating any of the activity, and I am not going to be providing any links. So if you could pay no attention so much to the technology piece of it, but more so to the content. What are the results? So when you hear about companies saying that they have access to determine whether your information is on the dark web, what does that really mean? What do they really have access to? And I'm going to show you what they do have access to, and I'm going to show you what they don't have access to. As I'm going through this, you may have various questions. Do just type them in there. There's going to be a lot of information as we go through this. So the dark web. Everybody keeps hearing this. It's a mysterious thing. It's glamorous in a way. It's hard to get to. Only the creme of the scene are allowed to get there. I'm here to tell you, anybody can get there if you know how to get there. The difference is, can you stay there, right? And also is, what is your purpose? Now keep that in mind as we go through this, the purpose. What is your purpose of doing this? So think about that also when it comes to those companies that advertise what they're able to do or get. What is their purpose? Well, their purpose is to make money. But what is the purpose of the locations that they're going to get that information? Well, a lot of times their purpose is also to make money, but it's also to steal information. So keep that in mind as we're going through this, because I'm going to bring up what you should and what you very much should not be doing not so much for yourselves, but maybe if you see or hear of others actually doing it. So with that being said, let's jump right into a demonstration. The whole point of this, I really didn't want to PowerPoint anybody too much to death, so let's talk first about what we can see. So if we do a search in DuckDuckGo for anonymous IRC, one of the things that you're going to get is their actual website. This here is not an official a non-operation site. Can you get to various things through here that are hosted on ToR? People are actually going to talk about that. No, you're not. You're not going to actually get that. So when you do a search for dark web markets, you're going to get a whole bunch of stuff. But can this lead to where the information really is? So let's kind of process this for a minute. Let's unpack it just a little bit. So if you think about all the information that's available out there for sale, all the information that's stolen for sale, when it's stolen, how pure is that information, right? So it has to start somewhere and it has to progress. So by the time it gets to the point where it's able to be seen in this marketplace area on the air finger quotes dark web, how pure is that data? How much has that been cut up so much to where it's a fraction of what it was when it was originally taken? And also, how much has it been distributed amongst others before you've actually paid for it? So keep that in mind also as we go through some of these sites when we talk about the validity and the value of the actual information. So we're kind of going to work backwards, going to work from the surface all the way back to the dark net. So I'm not going to go to any of these sites per se, but I wanted to point out that when joining a lot of these, I am encrypted, by the way. This is an encrypted session, so I'm not too worried about them seeing anything. But the point is that you come out here and there's tons of people out here, but you don't know what they're actually going to be talking about, and it makes you a guest. You have no identity, if you will, out here, right? So nobody knows who you are, and the only reason my name is actually able to come up, I actually registered it before I started this session. So once you register it, you can have your name, and it gives you an anonymous location. But what am I going to get out of this? Am I going to get anything? Not necessarily. So people usually go straight to the ToR browser. So when you go out here, a lot of times people want to say, okay, well, let's search. Well, how do I find if my stuff is out here? How do I find out if there's other things or stuff that I actually want to buy? Well, a lot of people just go to search engines. This is called Underdirt. So this is one of many resources that actually provide updated links to various search engines. But one thing I want to point out with this one, this is a very commonly used one. But one thing you got to be mindful of when we talk about the validity and the value of the data, there is another search engine called Onion Live. So if we search this for Onion Live, it's going to say that Onion Live was last checked on May 24th. Really, that's a while back, right? So it's been online 6 seconds. Well, let's go to Onion Live. Here's Onion Live right here. Onion Live is actually a series of other search engines, right? And so if you look at any of these other markets that are linked to this search engine, they're going to tell you that they've been last checked and up. This one was last checked 2 minutes ago. So the point is while you're using, whether it's Haystack or Underdirt or whatever the service is that's out there, the question is, okay, how accurate is this information, right? So all of this goes back to integrity. So when a company tells you that, hey, I found your information on the dark web, this email address has been compromised, I'm here to tell you I've actually tested that. And what I wanted to test was whether or not the email address and the password that I purposely put in was the same password. So what I found was when I did my own search on these, it did find the email address. So that part was there. But the password that was being presented to me was actually not real. The other thing I want to point out too is that unlike Google and other search engines that will provide you a way to translate the information that you're getting from these sites, there's no translator out here. So you're going to hit a lot of these search engines that are in other languages, Russian, there's several, there's some Polish, and so on. And so unless you know those languages, there's really no way to do that. So are the companies going in here and actually, cycling through all of these websites? Absolutely not. There are a series of programs that have been written in open source, available on GitHub and others. And there's some where they've actually brought them in and crafted their own. And they're able to run these various spider programs, and they're able to log in and query all of these various types of services. They can pick and select which ones have credibility, because going back to my point about, whether or not they're up to date, they actually have to keep up with that. Because the other thing you have to keep in mind is the legal part of this, right? What are they actually engaging in? Well, if they were actually going in and signing in to actual forums, because they always say, well, we found this on the forum. Well, the only way to find it on the forum, you got to be part of that forum, right? So they're actually logging in. So is there any concerns that you should have about how they go about getting that information? Maybe, maybe not. But for your own sake, I will warn that if anyone ever goes in and does any of this type and creates an account, I would advise it against linking it to anything that you use on a regular basis, email or otherwise. So how do they know that this stuff is up to date, what they're using? So believe it or not, there are metrics out here. This is a ToR status of various networks out, and it goes on for days. And so you can actually go based on the setup that you've created for your own company or for that business or for yourself for that matter, and find out whether the sources that you've actually picked and queried against are active. And this would actually show you that various types of information. The other part is, how are you interconnecting those? Are you depending on a third-party interconnection, or are you creating your own interconnection? Why I bring up all this is where you have to figure out, where is that line? Where's the line of basically querying something that could be linked to something that could be even worse, or completely invaluable in that the information is actually fake, that's being sold to them or provided to them. So there is a great effort on these companies' part to actually go through and validate this. But I can tell you right now that what I got from a service called Ben Verified came back and told me, yeah, here's your email address and here's the password that they found. I can tell you the email address is right, the password was wrong. And they wanted to charge me for that information. Unfortunately, I have a subscription, so it was already provided to me. So let's talk currency for a moment. I got gift cards in here as a search. Gift cards is still one of the many currencies that's being used to actually purchase services of these online. So one common search that you'll see is for gift cards. So if your company offers gift cards and you want to know if anybody is actually using those, there are ways of going in and doing that query. But if you wanted to see who is responsible for distributing those gift cards, you can see here there's 40 results just in this search engine alone, and it's going to list out all the various marketplaces that provide those gift cards. Okay, again, this is all surface, but again, while there's just tons and tons of services and tons of markets, it's got to start somewhere. Does it come straight to these guys? No, the answer is no, it doesn't. So let's go a step further. Let's go a little bit deeper. So this is part of it. So one of the sites, this is a Russian site that I actually belong to. One thing I want to point out straight away, right here, this warning, you have to have 50 messages, 25 likes. You have to have credits to actually contribute and take part in this website, okay? Still trying to figure out how I actually got accepted to here, because you have to be invited and you have to be approved. You don't just go to this site and sign up. It doesn't work that way. But as you can see here, here are several different selling services that are here. These selling services, if I take some of this stuff and I go and cross-reference it in the market, I can tell you it's not going to line up. Some of it would be older. Some of it wouldn't be even there at all. So this is one area on the deep to dark web that, while you can find this site, you're not going to get to it unless you're invited. Now, are they communicating here? No, they don't communicate here. They communicate through Telegram. So when actual things occur in the industry, like here's a brief report that came out, they actually discuss it. And you're probably thinking, Mike, do you know Russian? No, I don't know Russian, but I do have a method of dumping this out and decoding it so I can actually read it. But as things occur and as sales are being made, they may post something in here. You can actually go in and ask a question on the site, but most of the conversation is going to happen in Telegram because it's encrypted, and it's not so much secure on the forum in and of itself. So even if the forum is on there and there are advertisements like this for various types of services, a lot of the conversation that is pertinent to those services, or even interaction with the people that are actually selling it, is not going to happen on the forums. It's going to happen through another service, right? So these are just another example of that middle tier of access to the dark web. Again, I'm not going to go down through here. I'm going to refresh this real quick and see if they've updated this with any other. There was some social security numbers for sale the other day in here. There's accounts with balances, all types. So this would be your PayPal accounts, other gift card accounts, things like this. So this is where they would actually advertise this. And then you would actually have to go here to Telegram to communicate regarding the sale of those types of accounts. So even if you find this site doing a search through the search engine, you're not going to get in here without being invited. So what else is accessible but could be invite only? So this is the IRC Network. Been around a really long time. And for those of you that are on this call and are familiar with this, probably have been out here at some point in your career for one reason or another. There are several different services that are still out here. The one that I actually brought up is for stolen credit cards and other types of personal identifiable information. There is a set of bots in here that are specifically, their purpose in life is to validate credit cards. So if somebody steals your credit card, you would go to this network and actually run a query against the card to find out if it's valid. Typically, you would see that with somebody querying for $1 or a couple dollars or something like this. I was hoping to have some queries in here live for everybody to actually see. Probably go and look and see if there's any other networks up. So basically here, they're called checkbots. So this one's off, this one's on, this is global, this is one that we're in right now. So there's advertising ones, let's see. So yeah, it doesn't look like there's any that are actually on other than global. So, but inside here, you see all this advertisement that's actually going on. So the question is, okay, you get on here and you see all this advertising, you click on something. So here's something here, looking for service, database, social security number, date of birth, includes records, 1990 year, so on and so forth. So I click on this, I want to learn more about it. And am I going to have that conversation inside here? No. Typically, you'll be brought to a private channel. They would check you out. I can tell you that if you come to any of these networks not encrypted, they will kick you off. So the scrutiny of, referral, the scrutiny of, who you are, everybody, as far as they're concerned, everybody is law enforcement before you're checked out. And that's the level of scrutiny that they put you through. The other thing too is that the conversation you could be having may not be with that person directly. You actually would be speaking through a bot. I can tell you on this network over here, while it's masquerading as stolen software and movies, a majority of the conversations for this type of activity occurs over here through this botnet. The network that's running the various checks and things on here are actually conducted on this network as well. So the next question I get asked is, okay, well, all these bots are running, these guys standing up servers? No, they're compromised. These are all compromised machines. Now, some of them have been established over the years, running at universities and other locations, and just completely open disclosed locations where people are in charge of various data centers and that sort of thing, and they're standing these things up. But most of the time, no, nobody's actually going out and paying for these things because it's actually can be traced back. But then people go, well, you can rent botnets, you can rent servers. Yeah, but those are compromised machines that those guys are just turning around and selling, right? So if you're looking for that type of thing, or you're looking for PayPal accounts or whatever the case may be, the thing to keep in mind is that people go, well, I don't have a Bitcoin account. I don't want to pay for that Bitcoin. Well, that's why they take gift cards, because they can actually process that transaction with a gift card as well. But to go out here and find your own information, you're not going to find that. You're not going to find it on this network. But this network and several others, this is just 2 networks I'm connected to right now through IRC. These networks are just a couple of many, because a lot of times these are publicly accessible, the ones that I'm in right now. I did not have to be invited here. I just know how to get here. However, if I wanted to conduct additional activity in here, then I would need to be invited to another private network or a private channel that's on this existing network. So it all goes back to who you know. And so just being able to take part and easily go out and find this information through this network is not that simple. So a lot of times the advertisements that's going on in these networks, so you're asking, okay, what's the difference between the advertisements that are here versus the advertisements that are available on the ToR network? This is the source. So if you're actually conducting business with the folks that are here, these are the ones that are linking back to the folks that actually did the initial purchase of the stolen content, just the fencers, if you will, or the ones that actually stole it and they're trying to sell it out here. Sometimes these same ones will link back to a ToR market. I have seen cross-pollination between IRC and some of those, but it goes back to my earlier point about the very private networks that are out here that you have to be invited to if you're really wanting a serious amount of information. So the next question is, all right, this is all fine and good. This is great. This is fantastic. This is fascinating. What about my stuff? How do I go out here and look for my own thing? Don't look for my stuff. I am not going to tell you to do that. I'm going to let you decide. There are services out there that are perfectly legitimate services that you can take part in and having them query on your behalf, so you don't have to worry about becoming a victim or going and making sure you're encrypted and all this other business. But if I will just say this, if you do decide on your own to explore, just make darn sure that you're encrypted when you do it from whatever device it may be. Because it's not a matter of if the information will be used against you, it's a matter of when. The other thing is signing up or selecting to take part in notifications. Never take part in notifications for text messaging. That's how you end up with fake text messages that affect your phone. So there is a line that can be crossed, because at some point you get in here and you're like, okay, well, I've been accepted, I've been, I've registered and I've been checked out. Yeah, but you could also just made yourself a victim for later. Or if they realize that you really don't know what you're doing, you could definitely get taken advantage of. So this isn't for the lighthearted. This isn't for the novice. It's one of those areas where I basically say definitely leave it to the experts. So the next thing is, I showed the anonymous IRC server earlier. So I'm on here and I'm using this network. Do I connect? Let's say I actually do get invited to a private network. A lot of times there's a very specific tool that you have to use to get there. This is one called HexChat. So this is Afternet. So Afternet is used for a lot of those private types of conversations. So I brought up a blank one because I've hidden my information I have in the background on this. But I specifically have to use this tool to get in there. And why is that? Because the encryption mechanism that is in place to verify and encrypt the conversation as it's taking place on the server is managed through this client. It doesn't work through the original IRC client that I actually just had up. So why am I showing you this? This just adds to the amount of hoops that you have to jump through to really take part in the scene. So if you're willing to spend that much time and you're willing to go through all this, then fine, that's your choice. But back to the companies, are they going to go through all this? No, they're not going to go through all this. They're going to sign up with some sort of easy method to basically query what exists out here. So how can this be of concern in your business versus personal? A lot of people ask me that one as well. So let's go back to my presentation. And I call this my final cyber thought. The very first thing I want to point out is that as you go through and you see the various types of activities and various types of services that are out there, there are folks that may say, hey, I got, access to PayPal accounts. I can, they got balances on them and it's only going to cost me, this much money to get access to it. I'm going to go ahead and give a couple sites right now that you just absolutely need to stay away from on the dark web and similar sites. One is called PayPal Sent. PayPal Sent is a list of all compromised PayPal accounts. Now, this could work in your favor if you think that your PayPal account's been compromised. It's probably on that list if you see it there. So you can use these back to my original display of the dark time site, the Russian site. I use it for observation, for reference, for research. So just because I have access to it, as I showed you, I don't take part because I have no credits to do anything. I don't know Russian, so I can't speak to any of these people. And you would think that they would know English, but I did type in one thing once, and I got a virtual finger sent to me. Anyway, I think it was in Russian. So there are sites that you may not take part in, like PayPal Send, but you can say, okay, let me just search, and see if there's any reference to my PayPal account. Now, it's not going to be under your name; it'll be under your account number, and usually the last 5 digits is where you find that. Another really bad one is BitPharma. BitPharma, you can buy just about any substance from that site. Stay the heck away from it. I'm not telling you so much the audience on this presentation, but maybe when you think about your kids, right? So when you think about what are your kids actually accessing, where are they going, if they do take part in just exploring this environment, BitPharma is a really, really bad site. There is no limit to what that site will sell. All these are, by the way, only accessible through ToR. Another one's called Bancorp, another one's called Financial Oasis. So those two are where you would actually go and purchase fake PayPal accounts, gift cards, fake credit cards, the stolen credit cards that I showed on CheckNet on IRC just a moment ago. They make their way over once they're verified to Financial Oasis and Bancorp, and they're resold through that marketplace through ToR. So I say that leading up to the kids because IRC back in the day, for those of you on the call that know this, it was one of the main methods of communication that we used back in the day. But today there are so many different ways to communicate. And even back when IRC was still, prominent, there was ICQ and some others that came about. Yahoo Messenger later on came about. But IRC was still dominant, even in that space as those services were coming about. But today that's not the case. There's just so many different ways to communicate. So what I would advise is this: if you see that your child, son, daughter, whatever, is on IRC, the first question is not why are they on IRC. The question is how did they get on IRC? Somebody had to invite them there. And then you can go to the why, of course. But the how is more important, because if you're on IRC today, because of all these various methods of communicating casually and friendly and so on and so forth, there is really no reason to be on IRC. Now, I say that only because there are still some hardcore gaming folks that still use IRC, so there are still some valid purposes for some of this stuff. But a lot of those are even web-based IRC. They're not running the actual IRC client. So if you see the client running and it looks like what you saw earlier on your kid's machine, the question is, how did they get there? Because I hate to say that the activity that they're probably conducting on there is not going to be favorable, potentially. So that is my public service announcement, my final cyber thought. And then my other statement I always make is cyber is a shared responsibility. So as you're taking part in exploring these things, figuring out what's best for your business, what's best for your personal interaction, your own queries for that matter, what services to use, just stop and think before you connect and before you share, especially in that world. I want to use the rest of the time for questions.
I don't really have a question, but great presentation.
Great presentation. Absolutely the best.
Thank you.